Have you ever experienced the piercing pain of betrayal in your heart? I experienced it. My once loved and trusting world fell apart when the person I loved the most decided to be dishonest. I recall asking, "Why, Lucy?" with obvious pain in my voice. "It's not what you think," she said falsely, evading my gaze as rumors of her adultery floated around. She complained, yes, so much better, to someone else. Our illusion of love was shattered by the harsh, unforgiving truth, and I was left to walk a path paved with lies. This is my story of self-discovery and heartbreak. I hope you enjoy watching it. I felt foolish. That's got to stop, those negative dreams. "Hey lady, you're sad because you have no one else to use," I said as I hit the radio's change button to listen to a late-night talk show about UFOs or Bigfoot. After listening to that same song nonstop for the past few hours, I was tired of it. You might wonder, why? Simple. It was too similar to the woman I ran away from. Wait, no, I ran away. Let us begin at the outset. Stanley Shipman is my name. I have been married to Lucy, formerly known as Lucy Dalton, for the last 5 years. In high school, we were a thing, and I believed that we would stay together forever. Yes, it was a bad decision, but we were so in love, or so we thought, that we got married right out of high school. Whoa, I was wrong. There was no lack of money. I've been a welder since I was a young child. All I needed to know was from my dad, a welder. Ever since I was big enough to handle a welder safely, I have been joining metal. I was never able to help my dad at work, even though I wanted to. Insurance and rules said no, but my dad made things at home and always had something going on that I could help with. I thought it was a good way to learn. I attended a welding school after high school but left because I already knew everything they taught. I thus passed my test and won everyone over. I immediately went to work after receiving my certificate. I could do a lot of things, including welding, because I had a lot of experience. Particularly when I had to travel out of state for large jobs, I was paid well. I even made a lot of money welding underwater. My salary covered Lucy's college expenses, and she is currently working as a paralegal at a posh law firm. So why am I on the freeway this late at night, and why am I running? It is due to the individual I wedded and her cruel companion. Indeed, Lucy was quite charming and kind when we were younger, but circumstances do change, and they did. Please understand that I adore her and was glad to cover her college expenses. Her parents didn't think I could do it, but I did, and they thought I'd be broke doing it. The day she received her diploma, they were as proud of her as they were of me. Better yet, she finished school debt-free because of me. When did things start to get ugly? Following her employment at McMaster and Frederick's law firm. Things were good during the first few months, but gradually things got worse. She didn't get along with all of the women she worked with. Lucy began joining them once a week, usually on Wednesdays, for girls' night out. I didn't mind at first because I was usually out working hard and she returned early enough for us to spend some time together. However, she later began going out on Fridays and Wednesdays. The fact that Fridays were our date night annoyed me. Lucy started going out later and later after I spoke to her about it. Initially, she said, "We can just go out on Saturdays. I need this time with friends." She didn't return home until early on Saturday morning. My calls to her to see how she was doing always ended up in voicemail. When I was ready, I sat her down to talk. I said, "We need to talk," over coffee one Saturday morning. She questioned, "About what?" "These Friday night outs of yours," I replied. "Fridays were our date nights, but now you're out until nearly 4 a.m. What's going on?" "I hardly see you. The girls and I just like to relax with some drinks," she continued, "and sometimes we dance, that's all." "I know, but those clubs close by 1 a.m., I replied. "Of course not," she said, sounding weary. "Why are you out so much later?" "Are you with someone else?" she asked. "If you must know, sometimes we eat after." "Yes, but until 4 a.m.? I replied. "On occasion," Lucy replied. I said, this has to stop. You need to choose. You're either my wife or their friend. They see you more than I do. I didn't mind one night out, but this is too much. I'm sorry, she replied. If you want, I'll stop going out on Fridays. I think that's best, I replied. She nodded and headed to the shower, saying, then we can have some time together. I felt horrible but had to make sure she was safe, so I took her phone and installed a tracker app. After a few weeks, everything was all right, but Lucy soon reverted to her previous behavior and started going out on Wednesdays and Fridays. I had to know what was going on, so Friday after work I used the tracker on my phone to find out where she was. After getting ready, I headed to the club where she was hanging out with her friends. It was less of a true club and more of a bar with music and a dance floor. She was sitting with about 4 girls and 3 guys when I walked in. Lucy was very, very close to one guy, too close, in my opinion. In addition, her outfit was far more striking than it had been in the morning. They were surprised to see me when I arrived at their table. The man next to Lucy asked, "What do you want?" with a tough-ass voice as everyone else turned to face her. I said to Lucy, "Just got off work, wanted a beer," to get her attention. Everybody fell silent. I asked, looking around, obviously worried, "Not going to introduce me to your friends, Lucy?" "Everyone, this is Stan, he's my husband," she replied. "Hi, everyone." I looked at her hand and said, not too politely, I noticed her rings were missing. "Forget something?" "I took my rings off so I wouldn't lose them," she explained. That didn't seem true to me, but I ignored it. "I understand," I answered. Standing, her friend tried to appear tall. Said, "I'm Jake. Jake Rollins." Lucy and me work close. He smirked and shook my hand. Not Lucy, but the others laughed a little. I demonstrated my strength to him until he appeared hurt, at which point he stopped trying to prove he was the strong type. Holding his hand, he said, "Was about to ask your wife to dance." "Okay?" I gave Lucy a look. "All right," she gave a nod. "Go on. Just remember she's my wife, and I'm here," I advised him. With a nod, Lucy got to her feet. I took a seat next to Jake and ordered a beer, since most of the others had left. The girl next to me said, "You don't own her, you know," while I waited. I said, "And you are?" "Marie," she said. "Marie Compton. I've been mentoring Lucy a little bit, showing her the ropes." "So, Marie Compton," I said, making fun of the self-introduction she and Jake had given. "Who are you that I should seek marriage advice from?" She took a sip of her drink and said, "I am Lucy's friend, and as I previously stated, I am mentoring her. The partners enjoy her work and have big hopes for her." Her haughty manner bothered me, and I wondered what kind of nonsense she was feeding Lucy. "So, Marie, I never said I owned Lucy, but I am her spouse. If there is anything going on that is interfering with our marriage, I want to hear about it." Marie said, "The truth is, Stan, Lucy needs to widen her horizons. She's only ever known college and you. She needs to expand her wings and extend her horizons. Is there anything else she needs to spread? Perhaps her legs?" I responded. "There's no need to be crude," Marie said. "But now that you mention it, maybe she needs to try new things. Of course, you will benefit in the long run." "How?" I inquired. "Perhaps she'll pick up something and bring it back to you," smiled Marie in response. "After all, you're definitely earning some extra money when you travel for work, aren't you?" "No, Marie, I don't," I asserted. "I was going to work. I busted my buttocks, I put in work hours, get paid, and then return home. I adore Lucy, and I would never do anything to injure her or jeopardize our marriage." "Maybe you should broaden your horizons," she smirked in response. I said I take my wedding vows very seriously, and I trust Lucy to do the same. "I do not notice any rings on your finger. Have you ever married?" I inquired. She gave a shrug. "Yeah, a few times." "Let me guess, did your husbands catch you cheating on them?" I responded. She gave another shrug. Yeah, so nobody owns me. I do whatever I want with whomever I choose. Well, Lucy is taken, and I expect you to respect that, I replied. She laughed. Yeah, keep thinking that. Jake and Lucy had come back from the dance floor already. I shifted so that Lucy could take a seat in front of Marie. I took a seat, keeping Jake from taking a seat next to her. I couldn't care less that he didn't appear to be happy. So, Lucy tells me you are a welder. What are welders making these days? I inquired. $15 per hour, actually. Working underwater earns me more than $35 per hour. Didn't Lucy tell you that? I inquired. Are you paying her student loan, then? Asked he. No, she has no college loans because I covered her expenses. I also purchased a new Toyota for her, I replied. Damn, I had no idea welders made that much. I'm in the wrong business, he replied. He nudged me with his elbow and said, I'm sure you meet a lot of women when you travel. No, I work when I am out of town. When I'm on a job site, I usually work for 6 hours per day. As I told Marie, I take my wedding vows extremely seriously, I replied. I'm sure you do, a smug Jake answered. Things weren't going the way I wanted them to, and I was getting tired of these people. I looked over at my wife. I said to her, Have you driven here tonight? Yes, she replied. Good, since I've had about as much fun as I can handle tonight. I'm going home. I expect to see you close behind me, I replied. I started to get up and unintentionally spilled my almost full iced drink onto Jake's lap, getting mud on his khaki pants. Oops, sorry for that. I guess you better go home and change your clothes, I replied. Angry, he leaped to his feet and looked like he was ready to swing. You better make it count, pal, or your dick will be in the dirt when I wake up, he said. Upon observing the look in my eyes, he conceded. That was a wise decision, I informed him. I looked back at my spouse. Are you coming? I am right behind you, she muttered. Marie looked at me, and I saw it. If appearances could kill, I would probably have passed away by now. I left the room without turning around. A few minutes after me, Lucy pulled into the driveway. Good for her, I thought to myself. I got a beer out of the refrigerator and waited in the living room for her. With a red face, she barged in. What the hell was that about? You made me feel extremely ashamed. Have I embarrassed you? I posed a hypothetical question. She said, Are you following me or something? I gave a headshake. I realized that I had just lied to her for the first time in our relationship when I said, No, I was genuinely looking to get a beer, and I was astonished to see you there with your work friends. If anyone should be embarrassed, it was me. Imagine what ran through my mind when I saw my wife, the love of my life and greatest friend in the world, sitting there with some sex hound acting like a thrilled schoolgirl. Imagine how I felt a pang when I noticed you had taken off your wedding band. Were you embarrassed to disclose that you were married to me? Is this it? Her face softened, and she sat down beside me. Of course not, she said. It's just that I need to work with these guys. What is Marie's role, and who is the attorney I work with the most? Jake. She is in a higher social hierarchy than myself. She has been mentoring me and guiding me. Does this include guidance on getting married? I questioned her. What are you trying to say? May I ask? She inquired. She was giving me lectures about how you should broaden your horizons and spread your wings while you and Jake were dancing. When I asked if that included spreading your legs as well, she almost admitted that it did, so we're going ahead. Tell me the truth, did you cheat on me? She said, No, I have not, with her head down. She was unable to look me in the eyes for some reason. I hoped she wasn't lying to me because that is the one thing I will never be able to forgive. I informed her that Marie had mentioned that you might get some while you're away. We've been friends since the 6th grade. Have you ever witnessed me betraying you before? No, she softly answered, shaking her head. I have never cheated on you and I never intend to. I'm too in love with you to treat you badly or insultingly. In addition, I'm too busy working when I'm not around. When I told Jake that I frequently work 16 hours a day, I wasn't joking. I recognize. I've looked at your pay stubs. You may now proceed. What do you think? I paid for your college education, but you bought that brand new car and always dressed well. That's in addition to our monthly bill payments. Marie can shove her gar up her ass and shut up about things she doesn't understand. You know I've been saving up for a sizable down payment on a house. Lucy asked, You didn't think much of her, right? Not at all. I'm tired of the bullshit she's been giving you. Jake is in the same boat. I have no faith in either of them. Lucy looked at me in shock. She cheated and got divorced twice. How do you know this? May I ask? She inquired. She informed me. He also appeared to be quite happy about it. I feel like they're planning something and they want to take you down with them. I take it that you haven't done anything wrong? I haven't, Stan, I promise. That's precisely what I asked her. I like hanging out with them, she said. I also like going out with you. Do you think you could start interacting with your husband more often? Clearly, she said, putting her arms around my neck. I apologize. It's all right. As you are aware, my life goals have always been threefold. What is that? May I ask? She inquired. To get married to you first. Being the best welder in the area is the second objective. Having a family is the third option. She smiled and pulled herself closer to me. It was my turn to smile. Well, you've convinced the first, so let's work on the third, I said. Let's go, I replied, and the three of us hurried into the master bedroom where we had sex for the remainder of the evening. For a few months, everything seemed to settle down. Lucy stayed at home on Fridays, so I tried harder to be more loving and attentive. I purposefully avoided bringing up Marie or Jake again, putting my faith in Lucy to make the right decision. After that, on a Friday night, I came home to a dark house with only a few lit candles on the dining room table. I assumed Lucy had made something special because I could smell the lasagna cooking in the kitchen. When I walked into the dining room, I saw that our best china was set out, and when I turned to face her, I saw that my wonderful wife was wearing one of the shortest outfits I had ever seen. She knew that I liked to look at her legs, so she chose a dress that would draw attention to them. The dress had no back, and the front had two panels that barely covered her large cup breasts. She came up to me, threw her arms around me, and planted a deep-tongued kiss on me. Tonight was looking nice, already, she asked. Yeah, I nodded, taking in her stunning form. I'm delighted. It's going to be such an incredible night. Why does that happen? I inquired. It's unexpected. As I get dinner, go wash up and have a seat. Lucy was serving the lasagna and had even brought me a glass of wine when I went into the master bedroom to get dressed and change out of my work clothes. I loved Lucy's cooking, especially her lasagna, which was always stuffed with meat and mushrooms and dripping with cheese. I'm not sure which is more tempting, you or the lasagna, I muttered as I sat down. I hope you enjoy both tonight, she smiled back. I dove into my lasagna, which was delicious as usual. I took a few sips of my wine to avoid becoming too tipsy for the impending sex. After finishing everything, I felt a little off. I tried to get up, but I was too lightheaded and nearly fell. I stared at Lucy, perplexed. What did she do? I asked myself. Why? I began, but before I knew it, I was tumbling to the floor. When I finally woke up, I found myself naked on a chair in our bedroom. My arms were zip-tied to the chair's arms, as were my legs. There was a device around my waist, and my tool was stuck within a strange-looking tube. What the hell was this? Lucy! I asked myself. I became enraged and yelled, asking, what the hell is going on? Lucy went into the bedroom a short while later, but Marie accompanied her. What sort of nonsense is this? Please get me out of this chair right away, I inquired. Marie apologized and said, "It was for the best, darling." "Why?" I made a demand. Marie said calmly, "So you can watch your wife expand her horizons." "And her limbs? Were you the one to give me the drugs and tie me to this chair?" I asked. "Of course," Lucy answered. "You'd never go along willingly, so I gave her something to tide you over for a bit." I looked at Lucy with more matter than I had ever looked at before. "This way, you can watch your wife, KQ, and there won't be a thing you can do to stop it." "And you went along with the stuff? You are aware of the significance of this." "I'm truly sorry, but Marie insisted it was the only way. Trust me, please, this won't affect us at all. It's only sex." "I still love you," Marie claimed. "That's not true. Most married men fantasize about this kind of stuff, whereas I don't and never have. And sure, it does affect us. I told you I wouldn't stand for any cheating." "And what the hell is this contraption you placed on me?" I asked her. "It's called a meat cage. It's supposed to give me ultimate power over you and let you know who's in charge of our marriage," she replied. "I swear to God I have never dreamt about this, and I assure you that if you don't release me from this chair and remove this thing off me right now, we are finished. Please, don't be that way. It's just one night. I'll let you loose when we're finished," she said. I shook my head. "You're not this foolish, Lucy. Come on, loosen up right now." Marie walked over to me with something in her hand. The next thing I knew, she had put some type of a ball in my mouth that prohibited me from speaking. "You need to be silent and allow your wife to get screwed by a real man or two," she said. I shook my head to attempt to keep her from putting the gag in my mouth, but wasn't successful. I attempted everything I could to break out of the chair, but wasn't able to. Marie stood up and headed to the entrance of the bedroom. Jake and another man from our office came into the room and looked at me, chuckling. Well, the cook is ready for his initiation." "Yes, but he's not being too cooperative." "Really, this might help," Jake said. He reared back and smacked me across the face with his hand, then he hit me again. I could taste blood in my mouth. I was seeing red by now. "Don't hurt him. You promised me not to injure him. I owe him for destroying my clothes. Now, he'll watch me screw his wife," Lucy yelled. With that, he reached up and ripped Lucy's dress off. He told her to get those panties off. I shook my head, but Lucy lowered her panties and handed them to Jake, who sniffed the crotch before throwing them at me. As I watched, Lucy got on her knees in front of Jake and started giving him a blowjob while staring me in the eye. I trembled with wrath. Jake and Marie giggled when they noticed my pain. "Is your wife excellent at this?" Jake asked. "Admit it," Marie said as she videotaped the event. I shook my head and gazed daggers at her. After Lucy finished with the second man, Jake took her to the bed. "It's time for the main attraction," he remarked, staring at me. As I watched, Jake started having sex with her. I closed my eyes. "Anytime," Jake hissed as he shoved inside her. "God, it feels so amazing," Lucy said. "Better than your husband?" he asked. "Yes, so much better," Lucy said. His tears streamed down my cheeks. At that moment, whatever love I had for Lucy was gone. I've read stories where husbands got hard watching their wives get pounded, but all I felt was anger. I tried to keep my eyes off of them, tried to focus on anything else, but it was hard. By now, Jake was doing Lucy for all he was worth. All three traded places over the next hour. The three of them had a fantastic time doing all they could as Marie recorded the whole affair. After Jake completed within her for the second time, they got off the bed and walked over to me. "Did you enjoy the show, honey?" All of them laughed. "That wasn't so horrible, was it?" Marie stated. Jake and the other man pulled Marie and Lucy out of the way. "Make sure you get this," Jake said to Marie. The next thing I knew, the two men peed on me, making sure to smear my face with their piss. I thought I'd throw up. Lucy laughed as they spat at me. Jake approached me when they were finished. "If you say or do anything, Cook, I vow I'll make your life miserable, he said. Your wife now belongs to me. I'll come over whenever I want and do whatever I like. You've got me. He rose up and motioned for the other man. Come on, let us go, he urged. After they went, Marie approached me. Don't think about causing any difficulties. Jake was not kidding. This was child's play compared to what we could do to you, right? She stood and gazed at Lucy. Wait until I am gone, then let him go. If he gives you any trouble, call me. After Marie went, Lucy nodded in understanding. She removed the gag out of my mouth and cut the straps that held me to the chair. Then she grabbed the key from the nightstand and lifted the cage off of me. She began to say something, but I interrupted her, put on my clothes, and went to the phone. What are you doing now? She asked as I dialed 911. I may be a welder, but I am not stupid. I knew what she and her colleagues were doing was unlawful, and I planned to see them in jail that night. Lucy freaked out when she learned I had just phoned the cops to report a sexual assault and illegal detention. I seized Lucy's phone to prevent her from calling Marie. I also pulled her keys out of her purse to prevent her from driving away. She tried to steal her phone and keys from me, but I managed to keep them in my jeans pocket. When I hung up the phone, I sat down and waited for the cops. I knew they'd want to examine me and collect samples of bodily fluid for proof. Please do not press charges. I do not want to go to jail. Trust me, after what you've done, that's the most secure place for you right now. If I could have it my way, you would never go to jail. Hell, I would have made sure you prayed for the Grim Reaper, but I wouldn't let you go. Unfortunately, I do not want to go to jail myself, so you might as well get dressed. The cops will arrive any minute. You listen to what Jake and Marie stated, they mean it. You do not want to mess with them. Get dressed. I told her. Lucy noticed the look on my face and knew not to push me. She gently put on her clothing, and I felt her phone vibrate in my pocket. I took it out and noticed Marie had sent a text. Is everything okay? Marie's text was read. Everything is fine, I wrote. He isn't happy, but he'll cope with it. I sent the message, thinking Marie would fall for the ruse. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. By the time Lucy entered the front room, the police had arrived. I opened the door and let them in. It only took one look at my face to see that things were not going well. One of the cops took my statement, while the other officer spoke with Lucy in the bedroom. The officer collecting my statement requested an ambulance and collected samples of the substance on my face, placing them in evidence bags. The second officer returned, and they talked for a few minutes outside the front door before heading back. When they did, the second cop entered the bedroom and exited with Lucy. Her arms were behind her back as she cried. Please do not let them arrest me. It was meant to just be for fun. I shook my head, turning away from her. By then, 2 more police cars and an ambulance had arrived. A female cop arrived at the door and seized Lucy. The officer who collected my statement informed me that she was under arrest for illegal detention, drugging, and sexual assault. We'd like to get you checked out at the hospital to identify what they dosed you with. We will require blood and urine samples. I considered debating but decided not to. The more evidence against the a-holes who committed this, the better. He also advised me to take out a protection order. He handed me a card with the name and phone number of an attorney from the local DA's office. I took the liberty of calling her already, and she said she would see you at the hospital, he told me. I thanked him and followed the paramedics, who performed a brief checkup on the way to the hospital. When I arrived at the emergency department, they inspected me, took samples of the substance on my face, cleaned me up, and collected blood and urine samples. They gave me some painkillers, and I was just starting to relax when a well-dressed woman entered the exam room. Stan Shipman, she asked. I nodded my head. That is me, I said. Mr. Shipman, I am Linda Calloway. I'm the assistant district attorney assigned to your case. How do you feel? I've been doing better. I am feeling exhausted right now. They gave me medication to relieve my pain. Mr. Shipman, the cops who brought you in informed me on the circumstances. I've also been advised that the other woman and the two guys who attacked you have been apprehended and are currently being held in county jail pending their hearing. I am requesting that they be remanded without bail. However, they will most likely be freed on their recognizance. The corporation they work for wields considerable power in the county. I'm afraid so. I've taken it upon myself to get a protective order for you. Thank you for that. Do you think it will help? She shrugged her shoulders. I cannot say for certain. Maybe, but there is no certainty. I understand, I said. If it's any comfort, they'll be locked up until their arraignment hearing on Monday morning. I understand. I'm simply an ordinary working-class stiff with no connections in high places. When push comes to shove, I'm on my own. You have me, Mr. Shipman, she remarked with a sharp tone, so long as you don't make any dumb decisions. However, unless you intend to remain married to your wife, you might consider hiring a divorce attorney. No, I am done with her, I said. She nodded, indicating her comprehension. I've been told that they intend to hold you overnight for observation. It's just as well because your residence is now a crime scene. It will take them a bit to sift through everything and gather the evidence. Do you have a gun, by the way? I shook my head. No, I do not. I told her that my younger brother had accidentally shot himself in the leg with my father's .22mm pistol. He got rid of all his guns, and I felt it was best not to have any. Okay, just so you know, we have castle laws in this state, so you can defend yourself in your own home. I will keep that in mind, I said. What about drugs? Are there any drugs in your apartment? I shook my head again. I do not. However, it appears that I cannot say the same for my wife. Okay, I'll send that along, she replied. After she went, I fell asleep and awoke when they rolled me into a private room. After getting me settled, they gave me more medication, and I went to sleep for the night. My parents arrived the next morning after I had completed breakfast. They sat silently while I told them everything that had transpired. My father was furious. What are you planning to do, son? He asked. I informed him that I was divorcing the witch. He nodded his head in agreement. Good for you. Is there something we can do? He asked. I could use the name of a decent divorce lawyer, I explained. I know quite a few folks. Allow me to see what I can come up with. I could also use a ride home after I'm discharged, I said. Not an issue. Just phone me when you are ready. In the meantime, you can rest and relax. Do not do something silly, he advised. You recognize me? I asked. Yes, I do, he replied with a smile. That's why I said, don't do anything stupid, I joked. Everyone laughed, and they left after my mother hugged me. Lucy's parents arrived shortly thereafter. We had always gotten along, and they were like second parents to me. I explained what happened the night before. They were both surprised and mortified by what their daughter had done. I assume you're going to file for divorce, her father remarked. I nodded. Yeah, I cannot live with what she has done. I completely understand, and I genuinely apologize. Is there anything we could do? Her mother inquired. If Lucy is released from jail, she will need a place to stay. The assistant district attorney is getting a protection order, therefore, she will be unable to stay in the apartment, I explained. Her mother agreed. She may come and stay with us. Thanks, I informed her. We said our goodbyes, and they left. A couple of hours later, the doctor came by and examined me. He judged me fit for release, and the nurses started their paperwork. I knew it would take a while, so I called my father and informed him. My parents returned around the time the paperwork was completed. After the nurse gave me my instructions, she pushed me in a wheelchair to the loading zone where my father's car was parked. They assisted me into the vehicle, and we were on our way. We eventually arrived in front of the apartment. My father accompanied me to the door, where we said our final goodbyes. Remember, if you require anything, please call, he said. Thank you, Dad, I spoke. I entered the apartment and had a look around. The police had gone through everything, and I knew it would take some time to put everything back. I saw immediately that there was a message on our answering machine. I played the message, dead meat. The message contained nothing else. There was no introduction, nothing. I searched and discovered that the number was marked as private. Something in the message appeared familiar. So, I listened to it several more times. It dawned on me, this was not someone talking straight into the phone. I recognized the phrase as a line from one of those old Rocky movies, notably the one starring Mr. T. Whoever sent the message had taped it and then played it back over the phone. A few minutes later, the doorbell chimed. I peeked through the peephole and saw a young, gorgeous brunette standing outside. I recalled seeing her at the club when I first met Jake. I looked around but saw no one else with her. I had an idea and took my cell phone from my shirt pocket. I turned on the camera, set it to record, and put it back in my pocket. Then, I opened the door but left the chain attached. Yes? I inquired. Mr. Shipman, may I ask? She inquired quietly. That's me, and you are Holly Brinkman. I work with your spouse. May I enter, please? She asked. Are you by yourself? I inquired. Sure, I am. I closed the door enough to detach the chain before reopening it to let her in. After she entered, I shut and locked the door. Miss Brinkman, what can I do for you? I inquired. She said, please call me Holly. That's okay. Holly strikes again. So, what can I do for you? She gave me a manila envelope. What's this? I inquired. Please open it, she replied quietly. I opened the folder and peered inside. I noticed a couple of images. So, I placed the envelope on the coffee table and excused myself to go to the kitchen, where I grabbed a pair of latex gloves. I didn't want a chance of getting my fingerprints on something. I returned and brought out the images. Stunned by what I saw, the images displayed a horrific image of a deceased man on his knees, his hands bound behind him. The other photo showed the same man but from a different perspective. I looked across at Holly. Who's this? I inquired. It was my husband, she added, tears streaming down her face. His given name was Brian. Did you report it? I questioned her. She nodded. Yeah, the police declared it a suicide. How? I inquired. You don't comprehend. The firm for which we work has acquaintances in both high and low positions. They own a large portion of the police force, and some judges are on their payroll, she explained. I see. Jake, did you do this? She simply shrugged his shoulders. I honestly don't know, he could have ordered it. So, why are you still working for the firm? I questioned her. I have no choice, she said. Let me make a guess. You're more than just a legal secretary, are I correct? That is right. They treated us the same way Jake and Marie treated you, except that my husband went after Jake and paid the ultimate price. So are you truly just a hooker for the firm? I inquired. She nodded. Yes, my job is to be available to the attorneys and their clients. What is Marie's role in all of this? I inquired. She reminds me of the madam. She manages all of our assignments, and she was adding Lucy to her stable, she answered. Yes, I looked inside the envelope and noticed something else. I picked out a folded piece of paper and opened it. It was a note, but the letters appeared to have been taken from magazines and newspapers and stuck to the paper. Talk about cheesiness. I nearly laughed out loud, but I resisted the impulse. Shipman, the note started, please back off, or this might be you. It read. I looked across at Holly. Have you read it? I questioned her. She shook her head no. It was dropped off at my apartment this morning with a note to hand deliver to this location. Would you be willing to discuss this with the district attorney? I inquired. She shook her head no. If it's okay with you, I would prefer to continue living. You don't realize how nasty these folks are, particularly Marie. How many people in your company are aware of all this? I inquired. Almost everyone over the mid-level executive level, she claimed. I nodded. Figures. Okay, Holly, thanks for bringing this to my attention. I am sorry about everything. You appear to be a terrific man. Lucy is fortunate to have you. Thank you for mentioning that, Holly. Have a nice day, I continued, opening the door for her. I kept an eye on her as she walked away, making sure no one else was nearby. I closed and locked the door. This, together with the voicemail, had a significant impact. I still wanted to divorce Lucy, but these threats took things to a whole new level. And believe me, Lucy would be praying to the Grim Reaper to take her when I leave with Jack. I terminated the video and contacted Linda. Fortunately, she had scribbled her personal cell phone number on the back of her card. This is Linda Calloway, she replied when she answered. I told her about the message and the letter that had just arrived. This fundamentally alters everything. That's okay. I'd like you to bring this to me right now, she said, giving me her address, and then hung up. At that point, I realized I needed to get the hell out of Dodge for a while. I gathered enough supplies to last a few days and placed them in the back seat of my F-150. I had another idea and reached for the meat cage Lucy had used on me the night before. That, too, was loaded into the vehicle. I had an idea and wanted to investigate it further. After loading some of my basic welding supplies into my truck, I called my boss to let him know what was going on and requested some time off, which he readily granted. Thanks, boss, I said. I double-checked everything, shut the door, and exited. I arrived at Linda's condo in less than 30 minutes. She was astonished when she saw the photographs and the note. I also have a video of my conversation with the woman who brought it. It's really eye-opening. Please let me view it, she requested. I got out my phone and showed her the footage. Oh God, she gasped as the video came to an end. This clarifies a lot. Can you provide me with a copy of that? I gave her the phone so she could do what she needed to do. When she was done, she returned the phone. Then I noticed Lucy's phone was still in my pocket. I took it out and handed it to her. What's this? Linda inquired. This is Lucy's phone. I put it in my pocket the night Jake attacked me. I completely forgot about it until now. Perhaps you will find something there. I'll ask our lads to look, she said, sitting back in her chair. On second thought, perhaps I should contact the state or the federal government about this. If Holly's claims are accurate, I can't even trust our own police department. She glanced up at me before proceeding. What will you do? I'm heading out of town for a while, I spoke. She nodded. So what about protective custody? Maybe we should put you in a witness protection program, she suggested. Yeah, right. So Jake and his mates will know exactly where I am. No thank you. That's okay. Just tell me where you are. Okay, I said. I set out without knowing where I was heading. I knew I needed to get away from this garbage for a time. I pulled into a bank and took out as much cash as I could before driving around again, keeping an eye out for any automobiles that might be following me. All I could think of was the photographs of the poor man who was slain because he refused to be sucked by Jake and Marie. I knew if I wasn't careful, it would be me. It was late at night when it hit me. I pulled into a rest station and made a call. I hoped it wasn't too late. Fortunately, it wasn't. Yeah, said the gruff voice on the other end of the phone. Dave, my name is Stan, I spoke. Dave was an old acquaintance from long ago. We'd worked together on a number of projects and got along well. Stan, you old piece of what the hell is going on, dude? I have a minor issue and was wondering if I might turn to you for a few days, I answered. Sure, buddy, come on up. Just do me a favor and grab a couple of six-packs, please. No worries, pal. We'll see you in a few hours, I said. He added before hanging up the phone. Are you feeling better? I got onto the freeway and drove north on my trip. North, I came across a convenience store and stopped to get a couple of 6-packs of beer, a styrofoam chest, and some ice to keep it cool. I also warmed up my coffee and grabbed a couple of packs of cigarettes. I didn't usually smoke around the apartment, but I knew Dave did and thought he'd appreciate the gesture. After all, he was letting me crash at his apartment for a time, so I assumed I owed him that much. Dave Rowland was 15 years older than me and had previously worked with my father. That was how we met. He stayed with us several times while working in our region, and he felt like a big brother to me while working at my father's shop.